I like to know from your point of view, because you've done military, you're a self-made entrepreneur, if you feel like your Blackness has ever been an obstacle to your success. If no, I want to know what makes you different or your experience different. And if yes, I want to know how you cope with that.
Whew. That's a loaded question.
That's a tough one, yeah.
Do I feel like my Blackness is an obstacle? No.
Welcome to the Revolution of One Podcast, where the revolution will not only be televised, but also individualized.
Welcome to the Revolution of One Podcast. Today's guest is Mark Bush. Mark Bush is a man of many talents. He was a corrections officer, a military working dog handler, the CEO for a home caring organization, and the startup founder for the group Georgia. Today, Mark is going to talk with us about his story, how he overcame early life struggles, and how other people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds can overcome incredible odds in order to achieve great results. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, TK. Appreciate it.
Man, you know, it's so funny because you and I have had a whole bunch of conversations over the years, and I've said this to you live. Every time we talk, I think to myself, I wish we had that recorded. I wish we had that recorded. That would just be such a great podcast. I feel like you have so many interesting stories.
You have so many interesting stories.
Well, we have our moment, man. Yeah. I finally got you on the show, and we get a chance to do this thing for other people.
Appreciate it. Shout out to that video on Goldcast going viral on dreams and everything. That is epic.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. For those who may not know what he's referencing, at FECON in 2017, we did a talk called Dreams Don't Come True, Decisions Do. And that was pretty cool how that happened. I didn't even expect that, but Goldcast reached out to Sean Malone and they said, hey, can we use this video? And they're a really popular, inspirational, motivational
It's going
site.
viral, man. Like,
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It resonates very well.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. Well, let's talk about that. The whole idea of dreams don't come true, decisions do. I know for me, I did that talk not in order to, undermine the power of dreams, but to kind of encourage people to take it one step further, to not just fantasize about a better life, but to realize that your life is the outcome of choices that you make.
Absolutely.
And not just a cool vision that you have. I'd love to get your take on that whole idea.
Man, I tell you, I feel like I'm in the position I am today because of that very concept. And it's very hard to get people to understand that just act.
Yeah.
You talked about validation through other people.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes we have dreams, we have visions. We can't expect for everybody to catch hold and to jump on board. Sometimes we just have to go without the validation and just move. My business partner, Aaron, he always tells people when they start to tell me their dreams, be careful. Mark might actually make that thing come true for you. And I'm like, there's no reason why you can't. That's my only thing is there's no reason why you can't. So just do.
You know, the thing about support is funny because sometimes we have this feeling that people should give us that support. And when we feel kind of wronged, when we tell a family member or a friend, oh, I really want to do this thing. And they get that concerned look on their faces. They don't go, oh, that's great. They're like, oh, yeah? And you know they're worried about you. And you can feel really wronged by that. But even if it is true that people should support your dreams, if you're going to be an achiever and not just a dreamer, you have to liberate yourself from needing that, you know?
It's not that you need it. It'd be great to have. However, sometimes what I do in my mind is a lot of people, their minds automatically go to the negative, all the possibilities of how it won't work, it can't work. And then they talk themselves out of their very own dreams.
Yeah.
For me, it's not that I don't see how it won't work.
Yeah.
My ability and my faith in myself and what I'm able to do outweighs that. And all I can think about is the possibilities of how I can make it work. And why, if not me, why not, you know?
You know, it's funny because when people listen to motivational speakers say things like, every obstacle is an opportunity, it sounds so cheesy on the surface and people are like, oh yeah, whatever. But from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that's really true. Like the way to create wealth is to look at the stuff that everybody else is complaining about and say, I'm gonna be the person to find a solution to it.
You look at any billionaire, they created a solution to a need. So people can be problem identifiers. I'll be a problem solver. And the problem solvers are the ones that move ahead because they thought about the fix. not dwelled on it.
All right, tell me about a time where you've had to live that. You know what I mean? So you told somebody about something you wanted to do, and they gave you that weird look. And how did you actually work that out in experience?
Man, so I got out of the Air Force and I became the director of operations of a home care agency. Never knew anything really about home care. I knew a lot about organizational leadership and building a community.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I was made the CEO. At the CEO level, I kind of got to thinking to myself, it wasn't my company. My next level is out, and I don't really want to work for anybody else. And so in the midst of working for one agency, I started to develop what I felt I could give to the community, the community I'm in, home care. And I think a lot of smaller home care agency, they don't operate at the same zeal as corporate companies. Looking at data, using that data to build strategies. They're mostly moving off of emotions, not off of strategy.
And it's more of a niche market, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to think about those.
Exactly. So I remember I was like, in my own head, I'm having self-doubt on why would they come on board with my company as a consultant or as a strategist?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I'd only been doing home care for 3 years at that time. 3 years. And now I'm about to consult people that have been in this industry and business for so many years. But the thing is, as I started to talk to more and more home care owners, I realized, wow, it's not about the time that I've been in this. It's about the amount of education that I've been able to give myself about this industry that allowed me to have the wherewithal to be a leader in this industry. And it's kind of funny how I kind of doubted myself. Other people kind of doubted me too. They're like, well, why would they even pay you for that? You know, why would they buy into you? I'm like, why wouldn't they though? I feel like I can create something that they will find value in, and I was able to do it. But I could have easily said, well, I've only had 3 years in this, and how could they get something from me? You know, I should probably be learning from them in their minds, but why couldn't I? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, flipping the burden of proof. And instead of saying why not? Why not me? Yeah. You know, it's interesting too, because wherever opportunities are to be found, they have to be found in the realm of the non-obvious, right? If you think about investing, for instance, it's like, what is the definition of a profitable investment? You can have something that's overvalued, rightly valued, or undervalued. A profitable investment is the thing that's undervalued. Yeah. It's got to be the thing that most people look at and say, I don't really get it, or that seems confusing, or I'm skeptical, right? Like, that's got to be your starting point if you want to do things that are profitable. Find the stuff that doesn't have any easy answers and do the hard work of figuring it out. All right, let's talk about, you did a huge fast forward when you said you started at a home care company going from the Air Force.
Okay,
And you became the CEO, like, what was that, a few months later, you said?
A year.
A year later?
Yeah.
That's a fast track to the CEO. Yeah. What position did you get hired for, and how in the world did you go from entry-level employee, or whatever it was, to CEO 12 months later?
So I was hired as the director of operations. The company I came into had already been around for a good 8 to 9 years.
Okay.
They grew really fast. They had 4 different locations and an adult day center. So covering Macon, Atlanta, Thompson, and Milledgeville, Georgia, miles away from each other. All offices were miles away from each other. They were all acting independent of each other. Yeah. And so my job was to unify the whole company, put us all in one accord and moving forward together, not separate of each other, not separate entities. Okay. I then quickly realized what I needed to actually be keeping my eyes on. A lot of companies don't find benefits from, a lot of companies don't find benefits into putting money into their operations. We want to put it into marketing, we want to put it into our billing departments, but operations can also, when we save manpower, when we save, when we streamline systems and things like that, that actually pays back to profiting in our company.
Is that because operations is just seen as survival, but marketing that's growth?
Operations is seen as they're not the ones doing. So like administrative staff, they're not the ones doing it. They're not the ones doing the jobs that bring in the income.
Sure.
They're overhead. But when we streamline systems to where we can have lower overhead, that also pays back as well. And so we have to understand that we would hire more and more and more because there's so many, it's so antiquated. But if we could figure out a way that one person can do the job of three with the ease of one person, then we're putting money back in. And so that's what I was able to develop. My first annual review, I said, okay, all right, I'm gonna flip it on them. It was owned by three brothers. I'm gonna flip it on them. I'm gonna do my own review for them. And I laid out on the table everything that I had created for the company, every policy I wrote, every SOP, every form, everything that we did to streamline. And then at the end of the table, I put the numbers to it. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're just operating, we create it, we wanna move out, but we don't really see the value in the numbers to prove the system. And they walked around the building and they came back and they said, Mark, what do you feel about being the CEO of our company? I was blown away because that was not a position that I was even gunning for or even trying to. I was just trying to be an effective director of operations. Yeah. And opportunities come when we perform, but what's the craziest thing is when I came onto the company, I told them, I'll never ask you for a raise and I'll never ask you for a promotion. My work will, and you will ask me. And that's exactly what happened within a year.
That's a gutsy move, man.
Well, I think our performance should outweigh our mouths. Sometimes we can talk a good game. Hey, I'm a good performer. I can do this, that, and the other, and I'm willing to move up when the opportunity's there. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Just do. When you do, other people recognize it. That's when you really know you're actually doing.
Okay, I have that kind of faith. I've seen it played out in the lives of so many successful people. I've experienced that in my own life, but that's kind of hard to believe for many people.
Yeah.
There's kind of a fear that if I start, working at a job and I give my all and I don't demand a raise and make sure I'm looking out for, I might get exploited. I might get taken advantage of. So how do you live that kind of philosophy if you have those sorts of concerns?
So here's the thing is when we chase our own accomplishments, when we don't get it, it will determine our actions after the fact. Meaning, if I know that I'm looking to be recognized, when I don't get the recognition that I'm gunning for, then unintentionally, my behavior starts to give that off. But if my motives are right to be a performer, if my motives are to make my job better, make the people underneath me, their jobs better, the recognition will come organically, not forced. And even if the recognition doesn't come, I wasn't gunning for it to miss it, to change my behavior. So the big thing is motives is everything. We would love recognition. Yes, we would love promotion. However, no one has to give it to me and I'm not owed it. But if I work with the right motives, my actions become pure. Because my actions are pure, then the promotions come organically.
You know what I love about your story is that you took an entrepreneurial mindset to your work. A lot of people, when they hear that word, they think, oh, it means being a startup founder.
Yeah.
Oh, it means being on the cover of Forbes magazine. Yeah. But you stepped in as an employee and you said, I'm gonna act as if I own this business.
See, the thing is though, it's not even act like I own it. It's act like my name's attached to everything I do. If I value, and I tell you this, I just got really kind of like, my name is the most important thing to me. It's crazy because my last name was never always Bush. My last name was Anthony. So I lost my parents at the age of 3. Murder-suicide. So I lost both my parents in one day at the age of 3. We were witnesses to it. I happened to be blessed, and the perception is blessed, to be raised by my mom's brother. His last name was Bush, my mom's maiden name. And what was so crazy is at the age of about 15, 16 years old, my dad said he was going to give us his last name. there was always like this stigma of my last name being Anthony, because anytime, people ask me my name, they always had to ask the extra question of, why is it not the same name as your father? And I called my uncle my father. It's crazy because when you're a kid and people make the distinguishment of you not being, or you being adopted, it can kind of make you as a person feel jaded or dirty to a certain effect. And I'll never forget, age 15, we knew my dad was giving us his last name. What we didn't know was he was also giving us our middle names. So it was, our middle names were given to us as a way for my father to give us a name. And so my middle name is Devin, which means leader and strong will. And my name means more to me than anything in the world. So if something like that means so much to me, whatever I do, my name's attached to it. Mm. Whatever my name's attached to has to be just as good as I think of my name. Mm. Yeah.
That's powerful, man. I have to reference the Bible because I know your uncle, your father. He's very near and dear to my heart as well. And he's a pastor. Mm-hmm. And I know that we both are pastors' kids. We both grew up in the church. Yeah. and I know one of the things that we were taught about this whole idea of your name is that it's not just a label, right? It's your identity. It's who you are. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to identity, you don't get your identity from the world. Yeah. You bring it to the world. You don't say, I'm CEO, I'm executive assistant. Who you are isn't your title. It's, I am who I choose to be. I am who I create myself to be, and I give that to the world. Yeah.
It's like, whenever we would go out, before we would leave the house, my dad would say, whose last name do you have? That's my name. I gave it to you. Represent it well.
That's funny, man, because your dad is the only person on earth. My brothers and I make fun of this to this day. He's the only person on earth who refers to each of us by our first and middle name. Mm-hmm. Everybody, hardly anyone knows what TK stands for. Whenever your dad talks to me, he says, Takola Prince, you're my favorite. And then he says the same thing to my brothers, like how many favorites you have, right?
You're not supposed to talk about it. Yeah.
So your father's a pastor. What was that like for you growing up in the church, being a pastor's kid?
Living it, you hated it. I hated it. I felt like he was always gone. He was always, he raised 9 kids himself, 7 boys, 2 girls. And one of the things was I felt like he always had more attention to his flock, his church. But as a man, as an adult, man, I was just talking to my mom on the way over here. I can attribute most of who I am today by not what my dad taught us, but how he showed us, how he carried himself. And I emulate that unintentionally. And there's certain moments I catch myself like, sound like my father right now, And he actually, being raised as a PK, people don't know the sacrifice behind, being a PK, the family, how much we sacrifice. How many games he missed. My dad didn't go on vacations with us. We used to go to Wisconsin Dells all the time. My dad was an evangelist. He would travel. Yeah. So those are pieces we didn't get of him.
The church is like another family.
It is a whole nother family. It's almost like the priority family, and then we're the support for it. Yeah, we're the support system. And I think that my parents, my mom and my dad, the way they support each other, the way my mom supports him, is even a testament to the women I date. I attribute that to how she carried herself as a woman, as a wife, and sometimes I have to get that same vibe from when I date. Yeah. But they were a great pair. Yeah.
Your mom is she's interesting because she's so quiet.
So quiet.
But her presence is so powerful.
Don't let her fool you.
Like she says a million things just by being present,
Oh yeah, from across the room, if we were misbehaving, she'd just give you a look. Yeah. I can always remember we would go out to eat. Can you imagine going out to eat with 9 kids? 9 kids, we would go out to eat. People would come to our table, and they would say, how do you get your kids to act like this? The secret is we knew we were going to get a whooping if we didn't act right.
It's the look of your
Oh,
mom.
yeah. Mom's like, oh, noted.
Yeah.
Noted. Yeah.
Hey, man, let's talk about race for a second.
All right.
I think, so first of all, I don't use the phrase black community because there is no monolithic black community,
Yeah.
but I like to use the phrase black communities. And both advocates and critics of black communities tend to agree that there are certain problems, certain challenges that seem to be unique to black people, or that black people need to figure out and address, or that somebody needs to help black folks figure out and address. I'd like to know from your point of view, because you've done military, you're a self-made entrepreneur, if you feel like your blackness has ever been an obstacle to your success. If no, I want to know what makes you different or your experience different. And if yes, I want to know how you cope with that.
Whew. That's a loaded question.
That's a tough one, yeah.
Do I feel like my blackness is an obstacle? No. I don't feel like it's an obstacle. Do I feel like there's certain things that make things a little bit harder because of, or perception different? Yes. But I can view my blackness, my lack of having a degree, my lack of experience sometimes. I can cause all three of those things to be in the same bucket of obstacles. It's all in how I jump them or get by them that makes it work for me. I would be remiss if I didn't say that there's certain venues that I'll go into, and just because of me being black, my information isn't received with as much power or validation. But it's kind of funny though, is what's funny is there's times where people didn't hear me because of my skin, but they heard me later when they're dealing with the information I gave them. And they do call. They do want assistance and help. But I'm not ignorant to know that they didn't want it from the get-go because of, oh, what does he know? I don't really, being in the military, I'll tell you this, we were with each other a lot, different races. We got to understand each other, point of views on different things. I've got kids that are Mexican, Pacific Islander, white, black. That's how close of niche friends I have in so many different races. Sometimes I think in like black culture, we want to be heard a lot, and sometimes it's good to be heard, but sometimes it's good to understand other people's point of view too. Sometimes, and I think that being in the military helped me to be more universal on my thought process of life.
Yeah,
there's things that white people deal with, there's things that Mexicans deal with, there's things that black people deal with. We can use our race as a clutch to why we're not being successful, as an excuse for not moving forward. But just like everything else, just like every other obstacle, is what are you gonna do about it? If I come into an arena where I'm talking to an audience that I feel may be a little biased to me, all I gotta do is have faith in my knowledge, have faith in the words that are about to come out of my mouth. I don't even dress up when I go do things because I don't need to look the part. I am the part. I don't have to, not be black. I am black. And because of that, in this world, in America, we have to overcome it every day. But we don't use it as a crutch to not be successful.
What I love about your perspective is that you can say, look, I'm not going to allow my disadvantages or things like that to define me.
Somebody else's prejudice.
Right. Yeah. Somebody, I like that. I like that switch. Yeah. I'm not going to allow someone else's prejudices to define me, but I also don't have to pretend that doesn't exist in order for me to effectively deal with it. I think a lot of times this discussion gets sort of trapped in this false dichotomy, like either disadvantages exist or they don't at all, and if you ever talk about disadvantages, you're just sort of, victimizing yourself. But To be powerful isn't to say that the world is perfect or that everything is easy or that everyone's going to treat me fairly. To be powerful is to say, oh man, this world is screwed up in more ways than I can possibly imagine. And some of that is going to affect me uniquely. And yet I can rise to the occasion of figuring out how to make my mark in spite of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, another thing I like about you is you're not just an accomplished person in your individual life, but you give back. You spend a lot of time coaching other people. I don't know how you find the time to do this, but you have a brand, Mr. Intentional. You have a book. You do a lot of motivational speaking. You do a lot of coaching for young people and so forth. When you're coaching people that are coming from a really challenged background, who don't really have an easy time dreaming big, what's your go-to advice you give them for how to create change in their lives or take charge of their experience?
Just do. Just do. Stop thinking so much. We think a great deal, and our thinking usually talks us out of opportunities, dreams, and ambition. So for me, I feel like I learned my coping mechanisms at a young age. And I cope by understanding how to make myself feel purpose. I think sometimes when we're dealing with a lot of things, we lack purpose. And so my purpose is to pay it forward, build others, push people push them into their dreams. And watch their dreams come true. And one of the biggest things that I'm working with a young guy in San Antonio right now. Actually, he's in Austin, Texas now, graphic designer. And it's funny because I wish I could be a graphic designer. And he's 23 years old. And one of the things that I see is, why couldn't you get 10 companies to pay you on a monthly basis on a retainer to create content for them? I was like, man, that's 10 companies at $250 or $200 every other week. You could work for yourself at the age of 23. There's people that wish they had your skill. And now all you need to do is monetize how you use your skill. And you could be working for yourself at the age of 23 because you have a skill that a lot of people don't have, and a lot of people need it. We're in the day age of social media. We're always looking for more content. You can't get enough content to put out. And I gave him strategies on how he could make that dream come true, you know? And it brings purpose to me. And I do this when I'm stressed out. When I'm stressed, I go feed into somebody else. And it automatically takes me out of my stress moment. It takes me out of, what I'm dealing with and how I'm dealing with it.
I love that. It's funny because a lot of people ask me, hey, how do you spend time helping other people out when you have stress in your own life? And my response to that is always, how in the world do you deal with your own stress if you're not helping other people out? Because if you're not accountable to others, and if you're not focused on someone else's challenges beside your own, you're just gonna wallow and get sucked into that black hole, of your own suffering. I think it's service that gives us power over suffering.
We have our own chemical makeups that solves these problems. We have 4 happy chemicals. And when we do for other people, we release a chemical in them that changes their mindset. That release actually releases another chemical in us. I don't know the names of them. I've read about it, but it automatically releases an extra chemical in us, a happy chemical in us, that also takes care of the depression and everything else. If we understand how we work and how togetherness and how we bring purpose to other people's lives, to bring purpose back to our lives, that's how you actually cope very well. It's crazy. But even in the social media day and age, we're so separated from each other that we don't have enough opportunities to even see that I've changed somebody, I've impacted somebody to then do that. So the more we get outside of ourselves, the more we get, if I'm dealing with one thing, there's somebody dealing with 10 things. Let me focus on their 10 things and watch my one thing look this small. And how dare I be in a rut because of that one little thing. Going back to the whole being pastors' kids, I think one thing my father taught me, and I know your father taught you, is that morality
or the concept of doing the right thing,
Yeah.
it isn't this fear-based thing where it's like, oh no, if I don't do a good deed today, I'm gonna go to hell. It's not like that at all.
Yeah.
These are the rules of reality. When you do right by others and you do right by yourself, you experience the greatest level of fulfillment, the greatest level of freedom. So it's not about saying, oh, I better help this person and do something for someone else, otherwise I'm gonna get in trouble with God. It's like, no, the way to be a complete human being and experience what it's like to be fully alive is to have something to think about other than your own immediate gratification, you know?
All about motives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that many people don't know about you, and I know you own it.
You're just exposing me to everything.
I know you own it because we've had a lot of conversations about this, is you're a college opt-out.
I am.
And I say opt-out, you know, the world uses dropout, but to drop out implies that you failed, that you weren't in control of your decision, that you didn't live up to the ideal. But an opt-out is someone who says, this isn't for me. I want to choose a different path. And that's what you did in relation to college. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So what's crazy is I could actually go to college for free because I'm an Air Force veteran. I know that there's a lot of people that don't have the finances to go to college. There's a lot of people like me who wasn't always book smart. I was a great worker. I've always been a great worker. I don't think I've ever come home with a report card. Okay, nope. 3rd and 4th grade. My favorite teacher, Miss Collins. 3rd and 4th grade was the only grade that I was ever on the honor roll. At least a couple of times. Yeah. But there was never a time that I remember bringing home a report card without a D or F on it. Yeah. I stayed grounded for the majority of my childhood because of my grades. Yeah. And even getting out of the military, I did a little college while I was in. In the Air Force, they push you to do education. That's how you promote. That's how you get a great rating and things like that. You have to show personal development. Yeah. So you just go to school. Getting out of the military, I decided, I was like, I don't want somebody with disadvantages or with a different work ethic to think that they can only be successful if they go to college. I know a lot of people that have degrees and they're working at Starbucks, or have degrees and they're not even in the career fields of those degrees. And I just feel like, what if they just use that time to actually invest that time and that money and invest it in themselves and their own capabilities? We present ourselves to the world, like you said. We present our identity to the world. The world doesn't tell us what our identity has to be, what the DNA to success is. Everybody's DNA to success is completely different. What works for you works for you only. We can try to, put it down in a book and put a checklist to, if you do this, if you do that, if you do this, if you do that. But the thing is, though, is we all have a different mindset. We all have a different concept of things. So relying on a piece of paper to validate, or credentials to validate who you want to be, I don't think it's necessary. And I didn't want any of my level of success to ever be attributed to a degree. Because what if somebody with disadvantages don't have that access? And to be honest, it's my ability with the grace of God, for sure. Yeah.
The dominant narrative is, hey, if you don't do that, you're shooting yourself in the foot, man. Yeah. Because even if you work hard, you get a good job, there's gonna come a point where maybe you want a promotion or something like that. And people are gonna say, oh, you don't have a degree, we're gonna hire the person that's less qualified than you, that has the right credentials. Have you experienced that kind of pushback, an inability to get what you need because of that lack of a credential?
What's funny is I have not interviewed for a job since 2002. Yeah. I went to work for the Sheriff's Department at the age of 19 in Dallas County Sheriff's. Yeah. Everything else came because of somebody else seeing it in me. People are not looking for credentials and degrees anymore. They're looking for fit and ability to learn. If you have the ability to be taught, the ability to learn, the ability to take initiative, that's a huge one. To be able to take initiative, to be a problem solver in an organization, people want you. It's not about what a piece of paper said you can do. Because I've seen a lot of people with the degrees that can't do half of the things that I can do. And that's real.
At a lot of our fee seminars, we talk to a lot of high school students, a lot of college students looking for career advice, wanting to know how can I get to that point where I work my dream job and so forth. And one of the struggles that I see is people start with an entry-level role, it doesn't have a fancy title or like a flattering salary, and they have a hard time imagining how they can use that to get somewhere higher.
Yeah.
But you know what it's like to start at the bottom and work your way up. What advice would you give to someone that says, how can I use an entry-level role or a starting point position to get somewhere big?
I tell I have a younger brother who actually is working with me now. And I can remember he's a dreamer. And sometimes I feel like he talks himself out of his dreams because he knows where it has to start. He's afraid of starting. At the entry-level position, we have to be in position to be amazing where we're at. We have to, I attribute it to like climbing a mountain. I lived in Colorado for 3.5 years, Colorado Springs, the Rockies. You go up, you can hike the trails and everything else. But could you imagine being at the bottom of the mountain and then with a snap of your finger, you're at the top of the mountain? The view's nice. However, you can't take it in fully. It's when you start at the bottom of the mountain, you trip, you run out of food, you get that Charlie horse, you get scratched up, scraped up, things like that. When you get to the top of the mountain, you've learned valuable lessons for the next time you go and do it, for the next time you need to tell somebody about the experience. To say, hey, I got to the top of the mountain. How did you do it? Oh, I snapped my finger. But to talk about a story of what you ran into, what you captured, there's a waterfall here, here's a picture of this, that, and the other. It's the experience throughout the journey that's what makes getting to the top all the better. And then you're able to even guide other people and bring other people up. What I see nowadays is a lot of people have a hard time with being at the bottom of the mountain and climbing it up, climbing up the mountain. Slow, steady, it wins the race. Be great where you're at. Be a problem solver where you're at, not a problem identifier. Take initiative where you're at. People will naturally see your abilities to move up to the next level. But if you never show it just because you're at the bottom, I'm just this. No, you're not just anything. You are this. This is your job. Own it, become it. Your name's attached to it, and watch the development from that point on.
I have a million questions I can ask you right now, but it would only be right to end it on that note. I appreciate you joining me, Mark.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this week's episode. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest, Mark Bush, you can follow him on Instagram at instagram.com/MarkDevin31. Also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube for more Revolution of One videos, youtube.com/FeeOnline. Also, follow us on Instagram for my weekly Motivational Monday series. That is instagram.com/FeeOnline. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Google Play, Spotify, and iTunes. I'll see you next time.